All right, let's get her going. How we doing, everyone? Zach's good. You're good? Good? Excellent. All right, good to hear. Tonight, we are talking about a legendary couple. That's right, Moses and Pharaoh. Yes, exactly. What's that? Well, couples don't have to date. They could just be a couple, you know? And we're talking about Moses and Pharaoh. But first, we're going to start with our opening prayer. Much like last week, you are all group. I will be the leader. So, we'll start. Dear God, rescue those who suffer, O Lord.
Rescue them.
Rescue those who are afraid, O Lord.
Rescue them.
Rescue those who are hungry, O Lord.
Rescue them.
Rescue those who are hurting, O Lord.
Rescue them.
Make us instruments of your will, O Lord. Help us to help those who need you. Amen. All right. So, what word do we say over and over here? What in the world does that have to do with Moses and Pharaoh, that wonderful couple? Go ahead. They have to rescue the people. That's a little bit generic, but I'll accept it for right now. We'll get more out of that, okay? So, a few announcements. So, some updates. Volunteering, of course, we have the community meal coming up in 2 weeks. If you are able to help with that, it's a lot of fun. Can I see? Oh, that's amazing. That's great. Why don't we put it away for now, okay? Thanks. All right. We're also always looking for worship assistants. Is this a question or a comment?
It's a question.
Shoot.
What day of the week is October 6th?
Sunday. Good question. Sunday. 6 o'clock. We usually do setup between 3 and 5.
It starts serving at 4:30.
I just totally made that up because I didn't know the answer, but I knew you would buy it. And I have time between now and October 6th. But apparently we start setting up around 4:30. Thank you. Oh. So call it early afternoon. Yeah. And then, dun, 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 we have an outing, an activity. How many of you like apple picking? How many of you like pumpkin farms? How many of you like apple picking at pumpkin farms? Well, this is great because if we got a deal for you, that same Sunday, October 6th, if you can't help with the community meal, or if you want to help early and just make a whole day of it, from 4 to 6, we're going to Jerry Smith's pumpkin/apple farm. We just call it the Jerry Smith Farm. Don't you? I do too. Yes. They have the best apple cider, am I right? Yes. So, much like Sadie said, Jerry Smith's the best, so go. There's a sign up online, and it's free. Wow, this is like really competitive. There's all these people like competing against me to get the mic. Would somebody like the mic? Anybody at all? But careful what you wish for. That's what I thought. All right. So, sign up is online. It's free for any of you. And there's, I think, an added cost for any friends that you want to bring. All right? Cool. All right. Ask me a question. Go ahead. My middle name is still Danger. You're gall darn right it is. And it came with the free finger guns. All right. You get one more question. Go ahead. Am I a chef? I am anything but a chef. I can't cook. So I can make macaroni and cheese out of a box. I can make toast. Sometimes I don't burn it. And I can make cereal. And that's it. I was helping out at work. I was faking it. All right, we'll do more questions later. No? All right, but a good question. Good question. I can't cook. Thank God my wife can. But I clean. All right, so we are going to teach today, and we are going to talk a little bit about, chapter 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. Okay? That's right. We're basically covering half the book of Exodus. Okay? Should we just open the Bible to chapter 1 right now and just start going?
Yes.
Okay, I heard no. So we're not going to do that. Okay? But we are going to talk. So we talked in our in our prayer. What was the word that kept coming up over and over again? Rescue, right? And so we're going to talk about this idea of God delivering people from suffering, okay? We're still following our old man Moses, all right? And he's got all kinds of stuff going on. But the main thing we're going to talk about today is God delivering his people from suffering. We're going to answer the question, why doesn't God fix all the injustice in the world, okay? So we're going to start with a few key words. One of the words we're going to talk about tonight is plague. Who knows what a plague is? 50-50 at best? I get it. What's a plague? A sickness. Okay, that's a good start. What else? What do you think? A disease, okay. I thought you were going to say a disease that was sickness, and that would have been great. But yes, okay. So it's a large, okay, now we have another word. What's a calamity? A calamity. Does anybody know what a calamity is? No. Nope, but that's a good idea. Yes. A big disaster. Yes. So a plague, it could be a disease, but it might even not be a disease. Okay, kind of crazy. It's a large-scale disaster. Okay, so we're going to talk about, about 10 of them tonight. Boy, Passover. Who in the world? This is a tough one. We got a Skittles riding on this one. I know, isn't that so exciting? Oh, who in the world knows what Passover is? Habib, what's Passover?
Passover is a celebration of Israelites in Egypt.
Kind of, sort of. You're close. You know what? You're close enough. I'm going to give you the Skittles. That's a nice job by you. It's actually a good toss by me. All right, Passover. What else? If you're looking in the Bible, that's kind of great. Go ahead. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's a Jewish holiday celebrating when people get Passover.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's a Jewish holiday. Is Passover a Lutheran holiday? No. Now, we recognize Passover as a holiday, but it's a Jewish holiday, okay? And it commemorates the deliverance of people and exactly that, the angel of death passing over the doorway, okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about that one. We talk about this idea of deliverance. What is deliverance? Zach, what do you think deliverance is? Rescuing, saving. Absolutely. That was a good job by you. Nice job by you. Yes, so the act of rescuing, okay? So again, God rescued his people. And the last one, we're going to talk about this one a little bit. Injustice. And don't tell me the opposite of justice. Like, we got to do a little bit better than that. What is injustice? That's not bad. The lack of fairness or justice, okay? How many of you suffer from injustice? How many of you have things that just aren't fair? Raise your hand if you said that's not fair in the last 5 days. Yeah, exactly. Unfair happens all the time, doesn't it? Injustice, I'm telling you. Injustice, all right? So we're going to talk more about injustice later tonight. So, we're going to open the Bible. Actually, no, we're not going to open the Bible, because this is just too much to read. It would take us like the entire night to read all 14 chapters of Exodus that they want us to read, okay? So instead, we're going to watch a little video. All right. I feel really great. So now the interesting thing is if I can actually get the sound to work, because I actually did not, because I forgot about it. I did not test this before I ran it. I know, I'm so bad. We'll see if my laptop works. I'm more concerned about that. It did load faster last week. No, it's one of my favorite video series. Well, the router is actually, okay, let's see if we can get, hold on.
The book of Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible, and it picks up the storyline from the previous book, Genesis, which ended with Abraham's grandson, Jacob, leading his large family of 70 people down to Egypt. Now, Jacob's 11th son, Joseph, had been elevated to second in command over Egypt, and he had saved his whole family and family. And so Pharaoh...
This is a little introduction to the book of Genesis, or book of Exodus. So it's not exactly Exodus, but it's kind of like the backstory.
The king of Egypt offered the family to come live there as a safe haven. And so eventually Jacob dies there in Egypt, and Joseph and all his brothers do too. About 400 years pass, and the story of the Exodus begins. Now that name refers to the event that takes place in the first half of the book, Israel's exodus from Egypt. But the book has a second half that takes place at the foot of Mount Sinai. In this video, we'll just focus on the first half, where centuries have passed, and the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied, and they filled the land. Now, this line is a deliberate echo back to the blessing that God gave all of humanity back in the Garden of Eden. And it reminds us of the big biblical story so far. Humanity forfeited God's blessing through sin and rebellion, and so God chose Abraham's family as the vehicle through which he would restore his blessing to all the world. But the new...
Two things real quick. Number one, Pharaoh and Joseph. Does Pharaoh look like a fun guy?
Yes, he
Yes.
looks like a fun guy.
He's great. This is a guy. He's a good guy.
I
Okay?
never felt.
Yes. Pharaoh and Joseph were like this, really close. Good guy, that Pharaoh. Yes.
I like every there
Okay, so first thing, Pharaoh and Joseph. Great pairing. Another good couple. Okay? Second thing, we talk about Abraham, the Mount Rushmore of Christians, right? Abraham, because everything descends from him. So the reason that this is important right now is we want to talk the idea Moses, this other great guy, came right down from Abraham. So God promised to Abraham. Moses is actually like Abraham's great-grandson. Might be a few more grades in there, but there's a direct descendancy from Abraham to Moses. All right?
Pharaoh does not view Israel as a blessing. He actually thinks this growing Israelite immigrant group is a threat to his power. And so just as in Genesis, humanity rebels against God's blessing, so here, Pharaoh attempts to destroy the source of God's blessing, the Israelites. He brutally enslaves them and forcefully, right? And then he orders that all of the Israelite boys be drowned in the Nile River. Now Pharaoh, he is the worst character in the Bible so far. His kingdom epitomizes humanity's rebellion against God. Pharaoh has so redefined good and evil according to his own interests that even the murder of innocent children has become good to him. And so Egypt has become worse than Babylon from the book of Genesis. And so now Israel cries out for help against this new Babylon, and God responds. God first turns Pharaoh's evil upside down as an Israelite mother throws her boy into the Nile River, but in a basket. And so he floats safely right down into Pharaoh's own family. He's named Moses, and he grows up to eventually become the man that God will use to defeat Pharaoh's evil. In the famous story of the burning bush, God appears to Moses and commissions him to go to Pharaoh and order him to release the Israelites. And God says that he knows Pharaoh will resist, and so he will bring his judgment on Egypt in the form of plagues. Then God...
We talked about this last week. God said, hey, Moses, go get yourself over to the Pharaoh and tell him, right, we're not putting up with this. Hi. I haven't even asked the... Okay, go ahead. Uh-huh. I want to say 100 years old. No, he died when he was 126, I think I read. So, old-ish. Ish. I honestly don't know. Sorry. Oh, absolutely. Yes. This was a different Pharaoh. So remember we talked about the good Pharaoh, nice Pharaoh with Jacob? This is 400 years later. They got meaner after this. Yes. Yeah. No. Same mean Pharaoh. Yep. Yep. What did Moses tell God when God said, go talk to Pharaoh? Does anybody remember? Yeah, I'm just not feeling it, right? I got this stuttering problem. It's a Tuesday. It's just not going to work for me, right? Okay. He said no. Yeah.
And we said, God said just go do it, you have time to
He did. Yes. Does God put up with excuses? No. Yes. Yeah. Whoops.
Now, it also says that he will harden Pharaoh's heart. And so we're introduced into the next main part of the story, the confrontation between God and Pharaoh. Now, what does this mean that God says he'll harden Pharaoh's heart? It's super important to read this section of the story really closely and in sequence. In Moses and Pharaoh's first encounter, we're told simply that Pharaoh's heart grew hard. There's no implication that God did anything. And so in response, God sends the first set of 5 plagues, each one confronting Pharaoh and one of his Egyptian gods. And each time, Moses offers a chance for Pharaoh to humble himself and to let the Israelites go. But after each plague, we're told that Pharaoh either hardened his heart or that his heart grew hard. He's doing this of his own will. And so eventually, it's with the second set of 5 plagues that we begin to hear how God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So the point of the story seems to be this. Even though God knew that Pharaoh would resist his...
All right, so I just want to point out something real quick. So if you look at the plagues, we talked about plagues being diseases, right? There was frogs, there were locusts. Right, not a disease, just frogs everywhere.
That's a disease. That's actually
It was a calamity. All right? So there was eventually disease, but mostly with cattle. The last one? We'll talk more about the last one. Oh, yes, we will. All right.
Even though God knew that Pharaoh would resist his will, God still offered him all these chances to do the right thing. But eventually, Pharaoh's evil reaches a point of no return. I mean, even his own advisors think that he's lost his mind. And it's at that point that God takes over and bends Pharaoh's evil towards his own redemptive purposes. God lures Pharaoh into his own destruction as he saves his people, which is what happens next. With the final plague, it's the night of Passover, and God turns the tables on Pharaoh. Just as he killed the sons of the Israelites, so God will kill the firstborn in Egypt with the final plague. But unlike Pharaoh, God provides a means of escape through the blood of the Lamb. And here the story stops and introduces us in detail to the annual Israelite ritual of Passover. On the night before Israel left Egypt, they sacrificed a young, spotless lamb and painted its blood on the doorframe of their house. And when the divine plague came over Egypt, the houses covered with the blood of the lamb were passed over, and the sons spared. And so every year since, the Israelites have reenacted that night to remember and to celebrate God's justice and his mercy. But Pharaoh, because of his pride and rebellion, he loses his own son. And he's compelled to finally let the Israelites go free. And so the Israelite slaves make their exodus from Egypt. But no sooner do they leave that Pharaoh changes his mind. And he gathers his army and chases after the Israelites for a final showdown. As the Israelites pass through the waters of the sea safely, Pharaoh charges towards his own destruction. The Exodus story concludes with the first song of praise in the Bible. It's called the Song of the Sea. And the final line declares that the Lord reigns as king. And then the song retells in poetry what the story of God's kingdom is all about. It's about how God is on a mission to confront evil in his world and to redeem those who are enslaved to evil. God is going to bring his people into the promised land where his divine presence will live among them. This story is what it looks like when God becomes king over his people. So after the Israelites sing their song, the story takes a sharp turn. The Israelites are trekking through the wilderness on their way to Mount Sinai, and they're hungry, they're thirsty, and they start criticizing Moses and God for even rescuing them. They say they long for the good old days in Egypt. It was crazy. So God graciously provides food and water for Israel in the wilderness, but these stories, they cast a dark shadow. And we begin to wonder, could it be that Israel's heart is just as hard as Pharaoh's? we shall see. But for now, that's the first half of the book of Exodus.
Woe indeed. Indeed.
The book of Exodus
Whoops.
is the second book of
Well, that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
the previous book, Genesis, which ended
That's
with
kinda
Abraham's
funny.
grandson Jacob, leading his large family of 70 people down to Egypt. Now Jacob's 11th son.
This is what happens when you put something on loop that you didn't mean to. Yeah, it's like, all right, my apologies. So, what's that? Yes. Question? A comment? Thank you. I'm a smarter man now. Thank you. All right. So, what just happened here? Okay? We just went through the first half of the book of Exodus. All right? Let's start with this. What are the Israelites up to? What are the Israelites doing in Egypt? Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yes, so the Israelites are slaves. All right? Is that a good time? Are they having a great time visiting Egypt? No, they're definitely not. Okay? All right. Who's doing all this stuff? It's amazing how many hands come up when I bring out the candy. This is amazing. Yeah, go ahead. What's his name? Pharaoh. You betcha. And that was another great toss, if I do say so myself. All right. Pharaoh, he's a mean dude. What's that? That's what he looks like. It's a recreation. Yes. This guy's a bad dude. All right? A, he's got all these people in slavery. And B, he's killing all the children. Not great. Not a good look. Okay? What's that? And he thinks it's good. It's a good comment. Nice job by you. All right. So, what's God doing? What's going on with God right now? What's he doing? What do you think? It's pretty good. He's with his people. Absolutely. Absolutely. All this bad stuff is happening. Do you think the Israelites feel like God's with them right now? That's probably a hard pass. They don't feel like it, right? God's with them, but it sure doesn't seem like it. All right? We talked about this. Moses, he did what God asked. It was hard, but he did what God asked. And in the end, what happens? What does God do? What does God do? No, I haven't even called on you tonight. Go ahead, Marissa. What does God do? Absolutely. And then what happens? And then what happens? Yes. Yes. God saves his people. Okay? All these people in Egypt, right? They're slaves. It's the worst. All right? And God saves his people. All right? So, this is good news for the Israelites, right? Okay. How does this apply to us? How many of you are slaves right now? You like to think so, but no. This is hard to imagine, right? Raise your hand if you've got it pretty tough. Okay, really? You're right. You know who's got it really? Kind of tough. Maybe like 10% tough. Raise your hand if you've got it like 10% tough. Okay? All right. Raise your hand if you have some injustice, if life isn't fair from time to time. I do love people who raise their hand like this. I think that's great. All right. So, we have all this injustice. Give me an example. What injustice in the world? Give me an example. What do you think? Yes, absolutely. Yes, I know. No, you're good. No, an example. Give me an example of injustice in the world. Injustice. The opposite of justice. Yes, absolutely. Is it fair that some people are rich and some people are poor? Wrong answer. No, that's injustice. What else? What's another example of injustice? Absolutely, war. That's not right, right? What else, Sadie? What? Okay. I am almost as old as Moses right now. Okay? Loud and proud. Thank you. Yes, abuse. That's injustice as well. So think about this. Do you have another one? Absolutely, yes. Almost by definition. So God helped the Israelites in Egypt, right? Do you have another one, Pierce? Absolutely, that's a good example. Bad government, dictatorship, mean people, right? So all this stuff happens in the world, right? Why? Why doesn't God fix this? Whoops. You'd think I'd never done this before. We just covered white. So why doesn't God fix all the injustice in the world? This is a tough one. These are tough answers. So why doesn't God fix all the injustice in the world? Gemma, go ahead. Gemma. My bad. For my bad pronunciation. Go ahead. So if God fixes all the injustice in the world, people just might get used to it? Okay, no? Okay. Trying to find what's actually just is hard, right? What's fair to one person might not be fair to another person. That's really good. Really good. I heard you whisper, I have the right answer. I'm just dying to know what the right answer is. Oh, now that's a very Catholic way of thinking. So this is, we wretched humans don't deserve it, okay? Now, believe it or not, and I'm not lying here, there are some religions that actually believe that. I'm serious, okay? As Lutherans, we're not one of them, okay? We believe in God's grace through faith, okay? And that means God forgives us and loves us no matter what. But there are religions that absolutely believe we get what we deserve. Kind of weird to think about, isn't it? Yes, yes. What do you think? Yeah, good. Never mind. What, you didn't think I was going to call on you? What do you think? We do tend to mess up a lot, don't we? Yes. What do you think? There is a little bit of that, yes. So this is honestly one of the hardest questions to answer, okay? I'm guessing if you ask Pastor Beth Ann, what's the hardest question that people come to you with? Usually it's during people's times of suffering, and usually it's the question that tends to center around, why do bad things happen to good people? Okay? When you think about injustice, does injustice usually happen to bad people? No, because then it's justice, right? Okay? When bad things happen to good people, we try to understand why. And Zach, you made the point. How far back have people been screwing up? When's the first time people screwed up? Who's the beginning? The first couple. Yes, and they screwed up, right? And God said, never doing that again. And next thing you know, Noah comes around. It's like, okay, I'm getting rid of all the bad in the world. We're going to save Noah and his family because they're just. And next thing you know, it happens again, right? And so people keep screwing up, okay? And so God, it's not necessarily, I'm going to ask your, wise opinion of this, my not wise opinion of this, or maybe fake opinion of this, or made up. My belief, I'm going to call it that. My belief in this is people will do what they do, And God's job is to be here for us, to comfort us, and to get us through hard times, okay? But not always to save us, okay? And God usually has an idea of what's best. How many of you have had something bad happen to you at the time that you thought, oh my God, this is just the worst? And then it turns out to be actually like a good thing. Okay? I've had that happen to me all the time. About 8 years ago, I lost my job. It was the worst. It's absolute worst. I was just devastated. And thank God, because I found a better job and I'm happier, and it was just like I never would have left otherwise. So sometimes bad things happen when they seem bad at the time, okay? And there's a bigger plan, okay? So Beth Ann, I'm going to ask you, because this is a hard question, right? So from a professional point of view, or something like that, why doesn't God fix all the injustice in the world?
This is a really hard question. I should kick it to Pastor John up there, too. So, I mean, one of the things I think about is that God promises to be with people even in their suffering. And Jesus, in particular, promises to be with people in their suffering. And I don't think God promises to work that way, that God is going to fix everything that's unjust, at least not in the time that we would like it to happen. I mean, I think God promises to fix everything that's unjust eventually, but I don't expect it to happen tomorrow until Jesus comes, fixes everything. So I think this is just not how God operates, to just fix things. It'd be nice if it did. It kind of changes our relationship with God, that God doesn't just do that. You want to add anything?
Nailed it.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right.
You did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I think the point that Beth Ann made is a good one. It's not always on our time, right? It's not always what we want, right? Justice is in the eye of God, not in the eyes of us. All right? And it's a hard thing to figure out, but we learn it every day. All right, so we're going to do a quick quiz show before we send you off. All righty indeed. Yes, I agree. All right. First hand, the king of Egypt was called the Pharaoh. Yes, absolutely. Late for dinner would have been a really good guess, but it's Pharaoh. Yes. All right, a plague. I saw it right back here. A plague is what? Does it cause gingivitis? Yes, does it cause gingivitis? Or is it a large-scale calamity? Or a tiny little problem?
A large scale calamity.
Yes. What is gingivitis for bonus points?
What causes gingivitis?
What is that?
It's a gum disease. Yeah.
Caused by plaque.
Plaque. Yeah.
Plaque.
Right. Yeah, okay. All right, the water of what river turned into blood? Sadie. Ooh, you're so good. You guys are on fire today. All right, what kind of bread? Abib? Raise your hand if you think it's pronounced unleavened. Bingo, nice job. Unleavened bread. Does anybody know what unleavened bread is? Bread without yeast. That was awesome. That's yeast. Absolutely. Okay, number 5. This feast is a celebration. Evan, I saw your hand. The Feast of Remembrance, Hanukkah, Passover, or Moses' Day. I agree. What do you think? Real nice help. I'll phone a friend. Moses' Day would have been the second best choice. All right. When people were leaving Egypt, the Lord went in front of them as what? I don't think we talked about this. Zach, what do you think? A star to lead them to Bethlehem, a cloud with a silver lining, a windy day. Or a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Louder. Like you mean it. A pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. It's an awesome visual. All right, number 7. God parted the waters of the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Sea of Tranquility, or the Nile River? Yeah. The Red Sea, yes, absolutely. And last but not least, God took the people out of Egypt so that they could. Go ahead. Go to the New World, go to the land of Midian, go to the land of Oz, we're off to see the wizard, or go to the Promised Land. D, absolutely, go to the Promised Land. So, we've covered the first half of Exodus. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple other books, and then we're going to dive back into the back half of Exodus. So, any questions before we head out? You guys were a great crowd tonight. Great crowd. Yes? No. This is I get to give out candy how I want. Yeah, you did great. You're going to get a pat on the back, an attaboy. That's a great job by you. All right, and with that, go to your groups. Have a fun night, everyone.